Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast.
I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs. As hosts of the Imperfect Us podcast, we share relatable stories that celebrate we are all perfectly imperfect humans leading perfectly imperfect lives. We discover practical and evidence-based strategies that draw on the science of well-being and positive psychology that help us to uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We acknowledge the Wadawurrung and the Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to other First Nations people who are here with us today. So, let's get started.
Today we are excited to be speaking to the wonderful Dina Pozzo, who is the founder and director of Insium. A facilitator, speaker and coach, Dina creates a shared journey of curiosity, discovery, challenge and encouragement. Her aim is to broaden minds and build capability and confidence, empowering individuals to sustainable, positive action. Dina's passion to build courage started when completing her Master in Applied Positive Psychology, leading her to become an accredited Dare to Lead facilitator, which is Dr. Brene Brown's courage building program. She has also developed Insiums Leading with Courage program and workplace courage questionnaire. She is thrilled to be contributing to the courage capability of today's organisations. Dina works with leaders and teams and continues to partner with industries such as pharmaceuticals, education, entertainment, healthcare, sporting bodies, manufacturing and not-for-profit. Please welcome the wonderful Dina.
Dina, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here and speaking with you, Leanne, and also with Lisa.
We're really excited to have you, that's for sure.
We sure are excited to be speaking with you, and we would love to hear about what led you to the work that you do.
Oh, well, Leanne, I've been thinking about that, and I've been doing this work generally in teams and leadership development for a long time. So I thought to make it more relevant, I'd look at the last, 6-7 years since completing MAP. And if I think all of the work I do at this point in time, there's always an undercurrent of courage and building courage. And MAP led me to courage. So when we did MAP, we were asked to choose one of the virtues, and I chose courage. And I chose courage because I didn't know a lot about it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I thought, I don't know a lot about it. Do I really want to know about it? And I kind of forced myself to do it. Anyway, my mind was blown. My mind was blown about what courage is, what it isn't, and that you can build it. And at the same time, or in fact, post that group assignment, when I was looking to do my capstone paper, I did my capstone paper in Leading with Courage. And at that point, as part of my capstone, I was speaking to a number of my clients at the executive level, asking them about what the organisation had to achieve, what their team was looking to succeed in. And a whole heap of barriers would come up as to why they couldn't or shouldn't or, just didn't want to try. So all of a sudden, courage kept coming up. And I kept saying to my clients, you need courage. There's a reason for courage. Imagine if you had courage. And so the world that had already been opened up for me just expanded even more. And I thought, I am so interested in this, and there is so much value as well as need for courage in today's workplaces.
So
Absolutely.
true. I actually also think, just reflecting on what you've just been saying, and I love the work that you've been doing in this area as well, but I work in schools, Dina, and one of the things that we talk about with especially our little people, but all of the students, is that they have that barrier of, I couldn't possibly do that. So when we talk about courage as, well, what if you were a bit more curious and you had a go at using that courage and That I always remember as part of your capstone, that beautiful picture you used to use with the cat with the lion behind it. So I talked to the kids about that, and I'm surprised how quickly they flip it from I can't to what if I just give it a go.
Absolutely. And Lisa, when I think of what you've said, you're talking about encouraging children. And if you think of the word encourage, it's about enabling courage. It's about supporting courage. It's about empowering courage. It's literally that what if you gave it a go?
Yeah.
What could be?
It's a mission, isn't it? Oh, I love that courage piece. It is amazing. I'm just wondering, with leading with courage is often associated with taking some risks, which can be a bit scary, but also embracing that vulnerability. How might we, from your perspective, because you are such the expert in this area, how might we lean into courage to be daring leaders?
Yeah. There's a few things, Lisa. One of the things, that you mentioned you do with the children in the school is the what if I give it a go? And if you think about it, since we were this tall, and I'm talking about a little kid, we always taking risks. If you think of a couple of things, there is no courage without vulnerability. As soon as there's risk, there's vulnerability. So as soon as I step out of my comfort zone, there's risk. What will I do? How will I do it? I'm doing something I haven't done before. What will people think? Will I succeed? Won't I succeed? Will I learn anything? And so on and so forth. So from a very young age, we've been taking risk. And what I know from data that I've collected, and I've probably done now, I don't know, a few hundred interviews around courage. And what I know from that data is that we all have courage within. We just need to stop and think about it. And if we take a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to think about it, we're able to identify a time in the past when we were courageous, when we have taken a risk. And I encourage people to reflect on those instances and really get specific. So what did I do? What were the outcomes? What worked? What didn't work? What did I learn? Who supported me? What am I proud about of those instances? And then what we're doing there, we're collecting metadata on ourselves that we take to the future when we need to be courageous again. And we're thinking in our heads, either literally or perhaps not so literally, I've done this before. I've been courageous before. What can I bring to my future?
I think sometimes we forget that, don't we? Like, I think about myself, sometimes it can be scary being courageous. There's a lot of things at stake being courageous, and that reminder that you speak of is so important to fuel that confidence to move forward.
And Leanne, there's a couple of things. You mentioned fear, and Lisa had mentioned that also, but also confidence. We know we can be fearful and still be courageous. If you think of some of the big decisions you've made in life, there was probably perhaps fear, perhaps trepidation, perhaps some anxiousness in that, but it didn't stop you making those decisions.
Yeah.
You're courageous in the decision making. So there may not always be fear with courage, but it's likely going to be there. When I think of Leanne, I've just totally lost the other word that you mentioned that I then said. There was fear.
Courage, confidence.
Oh, confidence. That was the word, confidence. We know from a scientific point of view, there's data out there, courage comes before confidence. And when you think about it again, I sit in my comfort zone, I step out of my comfort zone, I'm being courageous in stepping out of my comfort zone because there's risk in that, there's vulnerability. And then I succeed or I learn and I go, oh, I'm a little bit more confident now. I might try that again and I might step a little further out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. It's I guess it's getting a taste. I've taken that step. Maybe my first step of courage won't be as big as the next one, or the next one. Each step gets bigger, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I talk to people about stepping out of their comfort zone, I talk to them about thinking about how big that step is, and I kind of go, you can decide to put your big toe in the water and see what that feels like, and that's okay. Or alternatively, you can choose to take a massive bungee jump leap out of your comfort zone, and that's okay too, or anything in between. But it's taking, and I say to people, I encourage you to at least put your big toe in the water.
Yeah.
See what that feels like. And if that feels okay, maybe, go knee deep.
Yeah. I really love that. A little bit at a time is okay. And then it's going to continue to build that confidence to make that bigger step the next time.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that.
Now, I don't know if I'm throwing this one on you. I did,
but
I'm just curious because Lisa mentioned it, and I started. It's got me thinking now. The younger you are you more courageous?
I don't know the answer to that question.
And I was about to say, I've seen that in action. So I probably have my own metadata on that one. I love that too, by the way, metadata. I like it. In that, I think children love to think that they're going to be courageous and do it, but you do see the fear and the panic. We've even got, in my learning group in particular, a little agreement that, stuff is hard, but if I just give it a go, let's see what happens. So there's that sort of three-prong that they came up with together. They are. So I don't know, but I think the kids are naturally okay to dive in most of the time, but there is definitely a fear there.
Yeah. It's such a good question. And Lisa, I love that you've got firsthand experience of that. If I think of adults, and this is an opinion, so let me put this out there very much as an opinion. As adults, through various experiences we've had, through our upbringing, through so many things that are under the waterline that drive us to behaviour, sometimes we become, I want to use the word conditioned. I don't know that that's the right word, compared to when we were younger. And let me explain that a little bit. You watch children play, and when they play, what does it look like?
Yeah, it's courageous.
Yeah.
It's courageous, and they're in it. And, if you tell a group of adults or you invite a group of adults to play, they kind of all go,
oh, no, I don't think so. I'm a bit grown up for that.
I'm a bit grown up for that. And I know I'm just talking about play, but, kids, and we play a lot in my workshops, and we play a lot, particularly because it takes vulnerability to play. For Lisa, the reason you mentioned, but I'm an adult now and adults don't play, or I'm an adult now and I'm in the workplace, and what will my colleagues think of me if I play? And so I actually use play a lot to explore vulnerability. And, I don't know if that answers your question, Leanne. It's an opinion, as I said.
Yeah, I think it's actually backed by science, though, because I know in the education field, they talk about play being, what is it? I can't remember the person's name, but play is the first or the highest level of learning or something. I can't remember. Is it Einstein or there's some big person who created that? And I was just reflecting again when you were talking about what do you see when kids are playing. You see a stack of courage, and what I liken it to if I watch some of the children playing, there is always some social interaction skills that are going on, and a lot of the kids will actually go, hang on, that's not okay. And that is courage to say that. Does that make sense? So that's very natural to watch that. Good for adults to do that, watch more.
Look, I always encourage people in my workshops, and I say, be childlike. You know, I'm not talking about being childish, I'm talking about being childlike. There's, again, curiosity. You know, kids, so curious. And curiosity requires courage, because what if I uncover something I don't like? What if I uncover something I disagree with? What if I uncover something I don't know what to do with?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
So, and curiosity is a huge courage building skill.
Yeah. And I think that would be good for everybody, you know, leaders, middle leaders, you know, every single person.
Totally
very exciting.
Dina, leading with courage is often associated with taking risks, as we've just discussed, and embracing that vulnerability. How might we lean into courage to be daring leaders?
Oh, Leanne, such a good question. It takes courage to explore being courageous.
Yeah.
You know, so as you know, I'm accredited in Brene Brown's Dare to Lead work. And her work has uncovered 4 courage building skills. And they are rumbling with vulnerability, living into your values, braving trust, and learning to rise. And learning to rise is all about well-being and building resilience. Without vulnerability, there is no courage. And it's kind of, it's almost not chicken and egg, but I need to be vulnerable. If I need courage, I need to be vulnerable. If we think of the definition of vulnerability is, and this is Brene's definition of vulnerability based on her data, vulnerability is the emotion I feel during times of risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. So to illustrate that, let's say I'm a leader and I'm making a decision around a possible restructure, okay? Is there risk in that possible restructure? Yes, absolutely. So many risks. You know, whilst I will scenario plan, whilst I will try and mitigate risk, I don't know that the final restructure is not 100% proof. We don't know. There's still risk in that. So with the risk is the uncertainty. Will the restructure work? How will people respond to it? And when I say people, my team, my organisation, our competitors, our clients. There's so much uncertainty about how people will respond to the restructure, which carries its own risk. And then the emotional exposure is all about, well, firstly, how do I even feel about the restructure? Am I going to share with others how I feel? What are the pros and cons of doing that? Then the emotional exposure is also, how are people going to respond emotionally to the restructure? So there is great vulnerability in being courageous, and leaning into vulnerability is what it's about, and knowing that. So one of the myths of vulnerability, based on Brene's research, is that I don't do vulnerability. And what is meant by that is, you know, never going to go there. I choose not to be vulnerable ever. Now, as normal human beings, we are vulnerable every day. You know, the decisions we make, we don't know with 100% guarantee it's the right decision. When I share information, even with you, and that's a bad example, when I share information with someone I don't know, I trust that they will hold that information with honour, but I don't know that they will. So there's risk there. When when I decide to, let's say, take a sabbatical, whatever the decision I'm making, there is always vulnerability. So if I loop back to the myth, I don't do vulnerability, you're actually kidding yourself, because you do vulnerability every day.
Yeah.
So I can either do vulnerability with awareness and understand when I feel vulnerable and understand the impact on me, understand how that expresses itself in my leadership. Or vulnerability can do me, and I can be surprised. So if I think of, that's a really long-winded answer to your question, Leanne, but when I think about how do we lean in, I think we need to have a degree of awareness that exploring courage requires courage, and it's going to be hard. Lisa, like you've said with the children, it is going to be hard. And knowing that I can either do the hard bit knowingly or I can do it unknowingly, and it's going to be much harder.
Definitely. And it's funny you say that about what the children came up with about it is hard. We talked about courage. I showed them the picture that you use with the cat and the lion. And I said, you know, learning is hard. It can be. And the kids are like, yeah, but it can be really hard. And so, and I bet you any money that adults would say the same, but perhaps be thinking it rather than saying it out loud, where the kids will just have, they've got such amazing vulnerability, they just say it.
Yeah.
But it is true. It can be hard, and it can make you feel that fear of, oh, what if I embarrass myself? What if I can't do it? However, when you lean into courage, lots is possible.
Exactly. And that's what we need to kind of remind ourselves of, the benefit of being courageous. And so if I go back to the metadata on myself when I was courageous in the past and think about, well, I was really proud. What was I proud of? I was proud because I achieved X. I was proud because, and, you know, all of that can be everything from I partly achieved my goal or fully achieved my goal. I could be proud because of the connections I made, you know, and I've got stronger relationships because people supported me through that, and all these other benefits. So I know if I do this, whatever this is over here, again, there's benefit in it. It's not going to necessarily be easy. You know, if it's easy,
you have the skills now too, don't you? You sort of walk that path. You feel like you know what you might be able to do. Something else might not work, but it doesn't matter. You've known it's that learning part, and you just keep going.
And I think the thing you say there, Lisa, about it may not work and it doesn't matter, that requires courage.
Yes.
To go, I stuffed up, or it didn't work exactly to plan. But what did I learn from that? And that's the good part of it.
It sure is. You know, I think about taking risks, if I reflect on my own courage, and I think perhaps in those very first stages where I knew I was taking risk or being courageous, there was a fear behind it because I wasn't sure what was going to come of it. How was it going to affect me? How would it affect my reputation? You know, all these different factors. But then you do it, and then you learn. And yes, sometimes those lessons can be hard in perhaps a negative sense. Although I try not to view anything with a negative sense. I try and view it as, you know, where's my opportunity and where's the lesson. Yeah. But, you know, in the context of things, those lessons can be hard. Yeah. But then those things that you do learn, they power you up so that the next time you remember, okay, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, this happened or that happened the last time and it didn't feel good, but I'm okay. Or you know, I met these amazing. I remember a trip I did solo to Montreal a few years ago, Dina. I don't know if you remember, but that was when we met, and you know, what a great opportunity to connect. You know, to lean into courage and connect in that way. So yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Leanne, the hard bit, because it can be really hard, that's where it's also really important to demonstrate self-compassion and self-kindness.
Mm.
Because it is hard. And to, you know, when we succeed, to absolutely celebrate that success. But when it's hard, and perhaps it's really, really hard, to just know we're a common humanity. And as common humanity, just as I show others kindness and I show others compassion, I really should be showing that to myself too.
Yeah. Dina,
and
do you
you're
think
not the only person that's failing at something or something not working. We're all in that together, which is that common humanity piece.
Yeah.
We're all going through those little steps one bit at a time. Some happen to do it very well, very quickly, but most of the time it's that same person.
Absolutely. Dina, does having courage fuel other people's courage?
Absolutely. We know scientifically there's a science behind it, and we know anecdotally we're inspired to courage on seeing others being courageous. Now, sometimes in the workplace that's difficult because I may need courage, Leanne, to give you feedback. And I'm not going to give you feedback in front of everyone, so no one sees that, right?
Yeah.
In the workplace, I might need courage to go and ask my leader for time off, for instance. Again, I'm not going to do that in front of everyone. So sometimes in the workplace, it's a little hard to see. Not always, but sometimes. But we know we're inspired to courage on seeing the courageous acts of others. We're also inspired to courage on hearing about the courageous acts of others.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, if I hear about where you've been courageous, I kind of go, I like what happened for Leanne on her being courageous. I want some of that too. And maybe I can do it too. And there's real science, behind it. And we know that anecdotally. You know, I'm even in this conversation, I'm kind of going, I'm getting the energy from the two of you to fuel my courage. And this is just through sharing stories.
Wow.
Can courage ever be not so good? And I'm thinking of, for example, if recently I've had an opportunity to share that I was struggling with something. Is there a time when that can not, the vulnerability to be able to do that, can that deplete your courage, or is it something that, don't know, just tricky situations maybe?
Yeah, I would love if there was a magic formula around being this much courageous or a magic formula around being this much vulnerable, but there isn't.
Yeah.
And we know, so one of the programs that I was facilitating around the time of my capstone was a program to build authentic leaders in senior to executive, at the senior and executive levels. And it was really curious because it was a longitudinal program, and, participants would leave the first couple of days and be really inspired to be authentic. And then they'd come back to a coaching session and they were deflated because some people in the organisation didn't value their authenticity.
Yeah.
They didn't value, and, authenticity goes hand in glove with vulnerability.
Yeah.
So they didn't value that, and they'd come back and be totally deflated. So we know, when we've chosen to be vulnerable, some people may not value that. And some people, again, we share our stories with others and we trust that they'll hold them with honour, but we don't know.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things, because what we also know is vulnerability is not disclosure. Now, that almost sounds like an oxymoron, because when I share information with you, I'm actually disclosing things, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking about disclosure in the extreme. Vulnerability has boundaries. And what I encourage people to think about when you're thinking of sharing something that has you feel vulnerable, think about, why am I sharing this information? What is the value for our relationship for me to share this information with you?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, sometimes the value is all for me. We've all got really, really close friends who we know we can just go vent, blah. Yeah. And it makes you feel good because you've got something off your chest, you've shared something. And you know that close person, that person that you're close to, still values you as a human being. So sometimes the benefit may all be for me, but when we think of workplaces and what we're sharing in workplaces, and I'm not to say we don't have close friends in workplaces, but when we're thinking generally about sharing things in workplaces, that's what I encourage people to do. Just think about, why am I sharing this? What's the benefit for the relationship? And even if you think of that for a minute, you know, or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long, you've just stopped to have a think rather than just the over disclosure, if I might call it that.
That's a really good point. I think, for people to know is how much you do share, and that time, I think, before you even share, really understanding what benefit of that relationship is for you to be able to say what you need to say. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Oh, so much gold in this. So, Dina, I'm just really curious about this one. So, fear and uncertainty can be common barriers to cultivating courage. And how might we adopt a mindset that would allow us to navigate these challenges and make bold decisions as leaders?
Lisa, if you think about what we've spoken about, it's about putting some of those pieces together. So knowing that you've been courageous in the past, collecting that metadata, being willing to reflect on that and pull that metadata out when you need it, that's going to help you have the mindset to try and be courageous again. It's also about leaning into vulnerability. So, when we think of Leanne's question earlier about how do we lean into vulnerability, knowing that it's going to be hard, knowing that we can do it with awareness, as in the vulnerability piece, or it can be a total surprise and a shock. And knowing that it's not going to be easy. As I said, the definition of vulnerability, the emotion we feel during times of risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. That's not easy.
No.
And without vulnerability, if there's no courage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Dina, courageous leaders often inspire and motivate others. How can leaders cultivate a courageous mindset within themselves and inspire it in their teams?
So remember, courage is contagious. And we talked about observing people being courageous. We talked about hearing the courageous stories of others. We can inspire ourselves again when we think of when we've been courageous in the past, because that's our story. Yes. So we can use our stories of self to inspire self. We can use clearly also the stories of others to inspire ourselves. The other thing to think about is the whole, I'm a big believer in this, spotting courage in others. And I'll tell you why. Again, through data I've collected, often people don't consider themselves courageous until it's highlighted to them. Yeah. And I'll give you for instance, I mentioned I've done, a few interviews, and some years ago now, but this has really, really stuck with me. Some years ago now, I interviewed Paul Kennedy, and Paul Kennedy at the time was a journalist with the ABC. And he and Chrissy Foster were the two people who basically got up the commission, the Royal Commission, into institutional abuse of children. Right. And I was chatting to Paul about that. And I said, wow, how courageous. And he went, you reckon? And I went, absolutely. And he said, no, I was just doing my job. It's what I do. My role as a journalist is to have the truth told. And I said, yes, absolutely. And amongst other things, you have stood up. You and Chrissy have stood up, you've spoken up, and you have taken on issues that no one else wants to talk about. And you've also taken on some of the biggest institutions in the world. And he went, oh, now that you say it like that. Now, some people who might be listening to this might think, oh, well, of course that's courageous, and that's huge and that's massive. But it's the same, the decisions you make. If you think about it, have you ever spoken up? There's courage in that. Have you ever made a tough decision? There's courage in that. Have you ever applied for a job, asked for promotion, asked for time off, perhaps said, this role is not for me anymore. That's all required courage.
Yeah.
And so if we think of the mindset and how do we inspire that in ourselves, it's about reminding ourselves that we've been courageous and about spotting courage in people. And I swear to you, every time I say to someone, wow, how courageous, and it might be, you know, I'm coaching someone and, you know, they've decided that they need to give someone feedback. It's going to be a really difficult conversation for them. And, you know, we talk about how they're going to do that. In the next coaching session, we debrief that. And I go, wow, how courageous. And they go, but it's my job. And I went, yeah, but not every part of your job's easy.
That's interesting that, you know, so many of us that say that, oh, but it's part of my job, as if it's like just a normal thing.
Yeah.
But when someone else spots a strength in you, it's like, oh, right.
Exactly.
So love, and it's also a really wonderful thing to feel when someone acknowledges you. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? It may take courage to acknowledge someone else. And I think that's the only word that comes into my mind is I think that's sad. And I do think it's sad that we can't just say, you know, what a wonderful strength you bring to your role, what a wonderful strength you bring to your home, whatever that strength is in whatever situation you're in. I think we need to do more of that. That's just a humble opinion.
Yeah, I like that.
In your people around you. And it's just one small little gift you can give of kindness, you know, and it would, who knows the ripple effect that would have on you.
Yeah. And there's a real vulnerability in that, because what if, you know, and I'm going to grossly generalise, but if you think as Australians, we're not good at getting compliments.
Yes.
I remember at the IPA conference in Montreal, Leanne, James Powalski, he spoke about what we tend to do with compliments, and we either out and out reject them, you know, oh no, I'm not that good, or deflect them, or, you know, I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah.
We don't just say thank you and take it away and think about it. And so, you know, if I give someone a compliment and they reject it or deflect it, it's kind of like, oh, you know, I've just been vulnerable because I've said this is what I really appreciate about you, and you've thrown it back at me.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting that I remember him saying that, and I remember also making a commitment to myself to say thank you, you know, on receipt of a compliment, and that's actually a real challenge.
Why? Can I ask you why?
Yes, I think there's a vulnerability in it. Of course, I've grown that thank you muscle, if you like, or acceptance muscle. I don't know what you call it. I've been building it. There's still a lot of work to be done on it, but to say thank you to a compliment can be really difficult. And if I think about why that might be for myself, it might be where my confidence has been challenged, or my self-view has been challenged, and you know, being seen. Oh, how wonderful to be seen, but
we don't acknowledge it.
yeah, but then what? You've seen me. I'm a bit scared by that, and so, you know, just that leaning in and saying thank you. I don't know if it's part of our Australian culture as well, you know, in my context, because, you know, I think we're a bit macho, aren't we? We can be. It's just what's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a vulnerability in saying thank you. You know, for me, it's the you know, it's like I've just thanked someone, and then I start the self-doubt. Oh, I wonder if they really meant that. You know, now do they think that I'm full of myself because I haven't deflected it or rejected it? You know, it's like, I know, just stop and say thank you.
Yes.
It's hard to say thank you too. I know I had to do a lot of work on that for me when people would acknowledge me, because I'd go straight into, but same sort of thing with that you mentioned about, that's just what we do. Like all the teachers are doing that, or also so-and-so. Or if somebody says to you, you look fantastic today, and you go, oh, it's just an old top, or, there's an excuse that comes back after. But when you stop and say, oh, thank you, I really appreciate that. And then you hear it in somebody else and you think, when they say the same back to you and you go, well, hang on a minute, just say thanks.
Yeah.
It's actually okay to say thank you.
Yeah. And you're honouring that person too, because that person may have felt really vulnerable saying that to you.
Yeah.
So it's, anyway. And you see, these are the little things. These are little things. People go, I'm not being very courageous, but yes, you are. Providing a compliment. You don't know how the person's going to respond. You don't know how then you're going to feel in response to their response. Disagreeing with someone. What's someone going to do with that? Are they going to go, oh, okay, let me have a think about that? Or shut you down and go, who the hell do you think you are telling me that you're disagreeing with me?
And how exciting, I think about that in that context, Dina, and being courageous to have that conversation, to challenge a view or whatever. There's some beautiful things that can come out of that. A changing of perspective of your own mind, of being able to learn in a different way.
And maybe your courage grows.
Yeah.
We're talking here growth mindsets. We're talking here, one of the things Brene talks about is being a learner versus being a knower. We are all employed because we are expert at what we do, but that shouldn't stop us learning.
No.
Correct. Yeah.
But look, I know for me, I was very much in the knower camp, particularly, actually, until not so long ago, to be perfectly honest. And I hate saying that because then I feel like I haven't been honest the other times, and I have been. But, I reckon up until I did math, I reckon, I was a real knower. And, it was all about letting people know how much I knew and being the expert and knowing more than the person sitting beside me. And for me, on reflection, that was my lack of self-confidence. That was not being comfortable in what I did know and what I didn't know. That was me putting the armor on, because if you saw the real me, you would know that I didn't know everything. And I couldn't possibly know everything, But that was me kind of going, this is how I feel safe. Yeah.
I love that courage to grow, Dina. Like that growth mindset really shines in that example. And it can, as we know, obviously a growth mindset from a well-being perspective is really important for us. It helps us to feel, positive about our next steps and all of that sort of thing. But we also know that there can be, things that will get in the way of that growth mindset. I know I always consider, we might always consider ourselves as having a growth mindset, but there are times that'll play where we are in that fixed camp as well. And that, sorry.
There you go.
Really interrupted you.
I was just going to say that it's a bit of a dance. Is that a fair assumption?
Oh, I think so. And look, it takes courage to, if I think of a growth mindset and barriers, and barriers will come up. We've talked about life is hard. When we think of courage from a VIA strengths point of view, perseverance is one of the key strengths that sits under the virtue of courage. So that perseverance to keep going. I've come across another stumbling block, but you know what? I'm going to stand up, dust myself off, and I'm going to go again. And, you know, that marries beautifully with Brene's work, because, as I said, one of the skills to build courage is your well-being, is your resilience. So, you know, and that's the picking yourself up, dusting yourself off. And I think one of the things I do want to say, we don't have to be alone when we're courageous.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need to think, oh, you know, if I instill someone's help, that I'm being less courageous. No, you're not. You're just putting things in place that are going to enable your courage. You know, and in that, asking for help might require courage.
Yes. Is that amplifying courage then, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I need to think about that. I like that.
I just
Because
think...
I was also thinking of that amplitude part too, Leanne, at the same time then, in that you inspire other people when you're seeking that support as well, so that you're building that courage together, but you're actually inspiring somebody else because they've seen you go through that process moving forward.
I like that a lot.
Well, something to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the beauty of it too, isn't it? Being challenged to think differently.
Yeah.
But having that social support is so important, I think, especially if you're struggling with that vulnerability piece or trying to be courageous and you're not sure how. Having someone around you that's going to champion you and help to amplify that, that's gold.
Yeah. Brene talks about having your square squad. And
tell us about that.
And your square squad is intentionally 2.5 centimetres, 2.5? Yeah, that's right, 2.5 centimetres times 2.5 centimetres, which is not very big. And it's intentionally not very big. The people who belong in your square squad are those people who are your loudest cheerleaders and will also tell you what you need to know when you need to know it. So they're not just cheering you on. Absolutely, they're doing that, but they're going to tell you what you need to hear when you need to hear it. The reason that the square is so small is because she wants you to be really discerning about whose names you write in that. Now, you know, Brene talks about, you know, put the initials of the people in. I actually say to people, no, write their name in full, because in writing their name in full, you're going to run out of room, which means you have to be even more discerning.
Yes.
I like that.
You know, and these are people that you can call, you know, so there's two people in my square squad. One is my husband, Jeff, and the other is my mum. Both of them are my biggest cheerleaders, but they'll tell me the truth. And being my biggest cheerleaders, it doesn't mean they always agree with my decisions either, but they back me.
Well, yeah, and I think you would have to be in my square squad.
Thank you.
I thought you'd like that.
No, Lisa, I love that you've let Leanne know, because one of the things I invite people to do is let the people in their square squad know that they're in their square squad, and also why, because it's a beautiful compliment.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about you, Lisa. but I think if I reflect on why, it's because you might challenge my thinking, and I know that that's a good thing. I know that it's a safe challenge. You've got my back, so to speak.
And it reminds me a little bit of, so back at you too, there was something just recently, and I cannot remember where it's from, but they talk about tennis. You know how you can respond, like, so you respond. Hang on, what was it? It's like you serve and then respond. So you can talk about something and you respond. I think that in our relationship, Leanne, is really good, because you can say, well, yeah, but, or, and so we're always challenging each other, but always backing each other up, which is a lovely thing. I'm just wondering, could you like give us a bit of an insight as to what your little square would be, and how many people would you have in that square?
So the square squad is intentionally small so that you're discerning about the people you put in it.
Right.
So if you think 2.5 by 2.5 centimetres, pretty small, not a lot of room to write people's names. And the idea around the discernment is to really think about those people who cheer you on, who have your back, and will also be truthful with you. So tell you what you need to know when you need to know it. They may not always agree with you. So, for instance, there are only 2 people in my square squad. One is my husband, Jeff, and the other is my mum. If you look at my life, they are 2 people who always have my back.
Yeah.
They may not agree with decisions I've made, in particularly challenging situations. They may not agree, but they support my decision. And they will cheer me on. They, hope with all their heart that I will succeed at what I'm after, but they will also pick me up at the finish line if I've stumbled. And they're the people who will pick me up, dust me off, and then, kind of go, okay, off you go again. Next. What's your next challenge? So, yeah.
That is such a good strategy to have, and to think deeply about who those people are in your cheer squad. I really like that. Brene Brown is incredible, isn't she?
Yeah, she's pretty. Look, what I love about Brene, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, I agree. She makes me laugh. She's quite hilarious.
I think she's hilarious too. I was quite surprised, because and this is going to sound terrible, but when I went over for the accreditation, and I will say this, but it sounds terrible, I wondered if she would be in any of it. Anyway, she took the entire time. She took the entire program. And which, for me, fangirl, I was like, oh, wow. And it was the whole time, what you see is what you get. No pretenses, no. She was basically, I'm going to use the old cliche because I can't think of a better one, walking the talk. She was the epitome of vulnerability and courage, and very confident in that, and confident in herself, and hilarious.
Yeah. And really generous in all the things that she does too.
So generously. So I cannot tell you. I have a number, like all of us, we've got a number of different accreditations. She is the most generous person in terms of accreditations and what she offers our community of facilitators, but also what she offers the world. There are so many freely available resources on her website.
Yeah.
Dina, we're getting towards the end of our conversation. Besides your fantastic work, which we will definitely be sharing in the show notes, is there a book or a podcast or a TED Talk that you would recommend to our listeners today if they just want to find out a little bit more about courage and the work you do?
Yeah, Lisa, I've thought about this, and there are so many. There are so many great books out there, so many podcasts and all manner of things. And I was thinking about a conversation I recently had with a coachee who, she's new to leadership, and she said to me, which leadership models should I be exploring? And there are so many out there which are really valuable, and each of them offer an important part of the puzzle that is leadership. And I said to her, if you watch one thing, watch Ted Lasso.
Yes.
Because think about it, he's the epitome of putting humanity back into leadership. He's the epitome of putting humanity into teams. He's the epitome of vulnerability, of bringing out the best in people, of, when you think about it, he went over, his boss wanted him to fail.
Yes.
And he dealt with that. He went to a team where there were some really big stars with super huge egos. He dealt with that. He knew nothing about the game, which, is quite hilarious. But I kind of went, for me, it's about putting humanity back into leadership. And I think he's the epitome.
Oh, there's so many lessons to learn from Ted Lasso. I'm in my second viewing of season 3.
Me too.
I've watched it all over again. It's like I don't want to part with it. And each time there's something new to learn.
Absolutely.
I know.
agree. Yeah.
It is a perfectly up our alley, put it that way, ladies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. We'll definitely put those into the show notes.
You're welcome.
Dina, as we get to the end of our time together, do you have a practical tip or strategy that you can share with the audience today that might help them to overcome self-doubt and embrace courageous leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share 2 tips with you, if I may. One, we've already talked about: reflect, collect the metadata on yourself. And if you choose, at our leadingwithcourage.com.au website, there's actually a reflection exercise in there to help you think through that.
Oh, beautiful.
The other thing that I want to suggest is, and this kind of circles back to one of the questions Lisa asked earlier around, and I can't remember the words you used, Lisa, but it was almost like, is there too much vulnerability? Is there too much courage?
Yeah.
When we think about courage, courage is this beautiful skill that sits in the middle of a continuum. And way over there, and it's a long way away, we have cowardice. And way over there, for those of you who are listening, I'm pointing to my left and my right. On the far right-hand side, and it's a long way away, we've got recklessness. Yeah. So we want to stay encouraged. We don't want to tip either way. And I encourage people to consider 3 questions. The first question is, how worthwhile is this act? Whatever this act is. Let's say it's, I am going to suggest a new idea for how we run our team meetings. Okay. So firstly, how worthwhile is it for me to do that? And just for simplicity, a scale of 1 to 4, 1 not at all worthwhile, 4 extremely worthwhile. The second question, how risky is this? 1 not at all risky, 2 extremely risky. And then the third question to ask yourself, how willing am I to act? 1 not at all, 4 absolutely. Now, there's no magic formula here, but what it does, it makes you stop and think. Yeah. So that your courageous act is intentional and you've reflected on it. Now, that reflection could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 days, depending clearly on the decision you're making. But if you've stopped and reflected on those 3 things, you're more likely to sit in courage than tip into cowardice or recklessness.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Where would be the best place for people to find out a little bit more about you and the incredible work that you're doing?
Oh, thank you. Lisa, I mentioned our website, leadingwithcourage.com.au. I'm really fortunate to have had a lot of people contribute to that website, either through interview or even writing blogs for me. So if you want to be inspired to courage, read those stories. There's also a number of freely available resources there that I've developed over time. And for both yourself, Lisa, and Leanne, and anyone else who may be listening, if you'd like to share your courageous story with me, I would love to hear it, because my remit is to build courageous communities, workplaces, the world. And we know stories, we know courage is contagious. So the more stories we share, the more courage we're going to build. And I will keep sharing stories for as long as people want to share them with me.
I absolutely love the stories on that page, and I do have a story on there. And I remember when I shared my story with you, Dina, I remember feeling quite vulnerable, but also that at the time that I shared it, I was so impressed by my husband's courage to strip off and run down a beach.
That's right. That's right.
I missed that story.
That. And your dog, because Indy and your husband, they're like best mates, aren't they?
They are. But I remember asking him for permission for, I think his backside is on your website.
Yes, absolutely. You see, and we ask permission.
Yes, we did.
I think I've seen that. I have to go back and have a look. Oh, my goodness.
There are so many wonderful stories that are beautiful. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
When other people are sharing their stories, it helps us to understand that we are part of that. Our common humanity is there. We've all got these stories. I don't think there'd be anyone probably alive that says they don't have a story of when they've had to be courage. or courageous, I should say.
Absolutely.
Oh, Dina, thank you so much. We're so grateful for having you on our podcast today and for sharing your amazing wisdom about courage and how to really amplify that in our lives and workplaces. Such a privilege.
Thanks for the conversation. I said this earlier and I'll say it again. I am so energised. And that comes from the conversation we've had. I'm really grateful. And I love talking about courage. I'm hugely passionate about it. I love getting that word out there. But more than anything, your energy today, both of you, has been tremendous. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Dina.
Oh, how good is that?
I know. What a great conversation. I think sometimes it requires a conversation to understand more about what it means to be courageous and what it means to be vulnerable even.
Well, sometimes it's even a reminder. Like, I think in some respects, especially speaking with Dina, we know the science behind this, but how many times do we forget and put that in the back burner? And think, well, hang on, what will I draw on? Well, courage is a very amazing strength and virtue. I really love the square squad. I hadn't heard of that from Brene Brown, and I thought that's a really good thing to have for you to back yourself if you're feeling courage is, just idling a little bit, but to have your square squad there to touch base with those people who know that they're there for you unconditionally to support you. They might say something you don't like, but at least they're being honest. I really like that.
Yeah, I think that's important to know who that, if you do anything this afternoon after, or today after listening to this podcast, get clear on who your square squad is. I liked the questions at the end that Dina provided us because I think that's really helpful. On my own personal journey this year, I'm leaning into courage. And I think about some of the scenarios that I might come up against. And just these 3 questions, how worthwhile is this question, or the challenging something? How risky is it? And how ready am I to act on it? I think.
And willing to act.
Yeah, and I think that validates then the courageousness.
It's a safe thing or not too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We put it on that scale, where does it fit?
It's a really good opportunity to pause because, there's often times when you might be frustrated or things are bothering you and you're trying to be courageous and you've worked yourself up to be courageous, and then it might come out in an inappropriate sort of way. But having that pause and asking those 3 questions will help you to work out, is this something I need to act on or not? Am I willing to be able to take the risk here? Is it too risky? Is it not risky? And am I willing to act going forward? And sometimes the answer will be no, I'm not willing to go forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, there you go.
Such a beautiful person. I love speaking with Dina. She's always a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, mate. Well,
all right.
We'll chat with you soon.
And thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful to our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about, and we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. To continue the conversation and see what we're up to, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Just search for Imperfect Us. Bye for now.